started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly webinar series where we discuss all things metrics. I am your host, Charles Johnson, or better known as CJ, and today I'd like to talk to you about how to build a dashboard. More specifically, how to build an enterprise-worthy dashboard, a dashboard that not only fits your needs, but will answer questions for others around the enterprise or your organization. And in order to do so, we're going to look at three parts of Statful. First, we're going to dive into the Explorer, where we'll actually gather the metrics, plot them onto our graph, maybe modify some visualizations so that it suits our needs. And from there, we'll dive right on into plotting that, creating a widget. Once we have a widget, we can then create a dashboard. Now, a dashboard isn't a great dashboard with only one data point to display. So we'll create multiple widgets and define a dashboard. Lastly, we'll show you how to share the entire dashboard, or maybe you just want to share the widgets, because your dashboard can be comprised of not only widgets that you create, but widgets that others create and share with you as well. Now, there were some folks who didn't get a chance to see last week's webinar, so I just want to go over a quick refresh, a rehash of some of the things we talked about last week on how to get data to Statful. And I'm going to use the Statful.com website as an example. As you see here, we have a curl request, which is just merely an HTTP request to Statful. And we're sending a metric. And the metric we're sending is test.demo.metric. And the actual value for this metric is 100. Now, these other values here are important too, and we'll discuss why they matter later. But just for your reference purposes, these are called tags. And tags just give you a different perspective of how to view your data. And we'll really dive into that as we create a dashboard and look at the different perspectives using the tags later. So with this example here, again, we're calling the API endpoint metrics. We're putting a metric. We have our own custom Statful API token, and then we're just sending the metric on over. So let's just go ahead and give that a shot just to ensure that our Statful instance is ready to go. So as we have here, the example from Statful.com, we have our own API token. And we're going to use a metric called cj.webinar.demo. And we're going to send the metric value of 60 to Statful. So let me get this going and let's see if we can. Scripts and sample. And there we have it. We were just able to successfully send a metric over to Statful. Now let's take a quick glance at it in the Explorer. And as you can see here, as I arrive at the Explorer, and wow, that was so quick, I almost want to refresh that. But as we arrive at the Explorer, you can see Statful has already identified the more recent metric that has been sent, and it's available for me to plot. As I select it, you can see here the value of 60 was sent at the time 10:05, which is about a minute ago, which is pretty accurate. So let's go ahead and clear this. And now we've gone through a quick rehash of how to instrument your code or how to get metrics over to Statful from the bottom up. Now let's dive into some code. Now, for those that weren't with us last week, our example was to use a sample web service that was exposing one endpoint. And the only thing this endpoint did was add two numerical values. And with that endpoint, we were able to do some simple instrumentation with Statful to get the number of requests, the actual result from the sum. And we were also tracking any errors that may occur with our service as well. Now, with this week's example, we're going to leverage what we've already done. But let's add an additional endpoint. Let's add a subtraction endpoint. And we want to capture the same metrics that we were capturing before. And so what I'd like to show you now is our new subtraction endpoint, but how we're going to utilize tags to get a different perspective of our data. So in our previous example, we had our result object, which shows us a result, the total value. We're adding a new flag here, a new value called operation, so that we can just classify from a very high level. Was it an addition or a subtraction operation? And in this exercise, we're going to introduce a tag. Now this tag, we're calling it endpoint, and this endpoint will have the add tag because it's doing the addition. And so this was the same code that we used last week for Statful with web.request. And again, we're incrementing by 1 because we want to keep count of how many requests are coming into our service. Now we're adding this additional parameter, which is the tags. And so as you can see here, we've instrumented the tags into all of our Statful hooks. Now, just a quick overview again, we're counting the web requests that are coming into the service. We're keeping account of the actual result, meaning the true computational value that we're going to return to the user. And we're keeping a track of any errors that may occur while we're doing our computation. And this should look very similar to what we have in a subtract, because again, we're going to call out the operation and we're going to create a tag of endpoint and we're going to call it subtract here. Again, we're capturing the web request, we're storing the result, and we're capturing any errors that may occur as well. So now that our service is ready to go, we can go ahead and fire it up and get it going. So npm run start. And in case I may have missed this, we are using the Statful client for Node.js. So things such as creating timestamps aren't necessary. As you can see, the tagging syntax is much different when you're using the client, whereby with the tagging, you can set up a JSON object and just use key value pairs, which are very native to JavaScript. So now that our service is off to the running, let's go ahead and let's throw some values at it. So we're going to curl our local host 3000 where our service is running, add, and we'll say 1 and 1. And there we have it. We have a result of 2 and an add operation. Great. Let's try our subtract. And let's go with 2 and 1. And as we have it, the result is 1 and the operation will subtract. Now, of course, this isn't going to give us a true simulation of traffic on our web service. So let's throw some traffic at it. What I have here is just a sample script that's going to run about 20,000 curl requests. And through these curl requests, we have a few random values here just to kind of simulate what a true customer would be doing and how a service really would operate in production. So we have here our endpoint, and our endpoints can be either add or subtract, of course. And then we have 2 random numerical values that are being generated to utilize the service. So let's go ahead and let's get this script fired up. As you see, now we're off to the races. So now it's on to the fun part. Let's jump into Statful and let's start to plot this data on the graph. Now, jumping back in here to the Explorer, I'm going to look for my web.request. And as you see here, as I type, it just pre-populates the data for me. And here we have it. Now I have my actual set of data coming in from our service. Now, right now we're looking at a timeline of 1 hour. So that's saying in the past 1 hour, what has happened? And as you can imagine, we don't really have a lot of data to really plot here and get down to the fine details. So why don't I slim our timeline here to something a little more reasonable, like 5 minutes. And there we have it. Now you can see here, we have something that makes a little bit more sense. Yes, we know a request went from 0 to actually having requests, but how many requests per second are we looking at around the average here? And so taking a look at our graph here, now we're able to discern that. Now, I don't have my resolution, my refresh on, and this isn't indicative of what the enterprise is like. The service is constantly running. I don't want to consistently refresh. So why don't I turn on the real-time engine? I'm going to set a refresh of 5 seconds. So every 5 seconds, we're going to poll for new results. And we're going to set our resolutions at 1 second. So that means within each one of these values, as we begin to refresh, we're going to take a look at the second, at that granular level, at the 1 second, how many requests are coming in. So as we see here, we have, as you can see from my mouse cursor here, we're now counting by the seconds. You have 3, 2, 1, right? We're getting the individual seconds. Now this is a little too close to it. So let me step out just a little bit. So I'm going to go to 15 minutes. All right. So that gives us a good understanding of what's going on. And it appears as though we may have taken a drop, a slight dip here. So why don't we get to this visualization works, but I think we can get a better visualization in order to really understand what's going on here. So what I'm going to do here is go to our configuration, and I'm going to go through our options of our visualizations available. So we have it. That works too. There we go. Now that I like. That I can easily discern what's happening And as it's coming in, my eyes just naturally flock to the dips and the highs and the peaks. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. Let's step back on over here to Statful. Now, this is a graph just highlighting the total amount of requests. So why don't we go ahead and give it a name? Endpoint requests. We'll say requests. Now, as we mentioned before, we did create some tags within Statful at the endpoint tag, and we have two values, add and subtract. I'm going to save this widget, and then we're going to return to this and see what we can do with these tags now. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And so it's asking me now that I have a name. Would I like to save it to a dashboard? And I've created a dashboard for us just to go ahead and get us started. That I actually happen to remove. So why don't I do this? Why don't I do a save as? Let's create a quick save. And we'll go ahead and we'll create a dashboard for ourselves really quickly. So let's go and let's create a dashboard called requests. We have it. Now we can return back over to our guy here. Where we are, we have requests. So now we'll save our dashboards to requests. And now we have our endpoints set up. And let's see how that registers now. So now we get over here to web service, we have our dashboard requests, and you can see them on our timeline. I have the timeline for my dashboard set up as 1 hour to now. And again, I can kind of bring this in a little closer. And for the sake of our talk here, why don't I just bring it into 15 minutes? And again, I need to understand, and I want to move at the pace of the business. So I want the real-time engine to work. So as these begin to flow on in, we'll see them in real time. So I'm just going to save this, and now my dashboard is saved. Now, we were discussing the tags. So what I've done now is I've jumped back into the Explorer, hitting edit, and now I kind of want to break this apart, right? So I want to see what the total amount of requests are for just the add endpoint. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select my add. And even I wanted to see subtract too, I could do so as well, and I could actually group them. But let's just stick with add for the time being. And so we're going to stick with we're going to have our add. And so let's call this endpoints addition. And so this is the total amount of requests that we're getting at the moment that are just hitting the addition service. And so we're going to save this as endpoint requests by addition. And let's go ahead and add this to our requests dashboard. And there we have it. Now we're able to just easily see how many addition requests were being made. But let's jump back in here. And again, using our tags, let's discern how many are just for the subtraction. And so as you can see, just easily using the tagging system, we're able to get a different perspective of how our data is being shaped at the moment. And so what I'm going to save this again. And again, we're going to add it back to our request dashboard. And now we have a dashboard for our cloud operations team. So our cloud operations team or our infrastructure team is able to see how many requests are we getting on this web server per second. And then if they want a more focused look, they can take a look at the addition request versus the subtraction request. Now, this is purposely done. We purposely wanted the subtract endpoint to be hit a lot less so that we can see this discernible difference in the data. But if you're looking for another opportunity to kind of really stack the data, Statful also gives you a stacking approach as well. And what I'll do is I'll kind of modify this here. So let's jump back into our endpoint requests and let's set our groupings. So now we have our groupings and here we have it. As you can see, now we're stacked. So I'm going to save this and now we're back to our dashboard. And as you can see here, now I have a really clear view of how many requests are coming in per second. And with this visualization, I can easily with my eyes just discern the different perspectives or the different data, the different endpoints that are being hit at the time. Now, this is great for, again, your DevOps, your enterprise infrastructure team, because they really care about what's happening to your infrastructure, right? But we're also capturing the results, right? We're capturing the results for the addition service and the subtraction endpoint, which could be valuable. That could be valuable to the business intelligence team. So why don't we go ahead and create a dashboard for our total values? All right. So there we have it. Our dashboard is created. And why don't we just go ahead and jump on into the Explorer? So what I want to find now is web service, and we're looking for our results. Because again, that's our namespace, web.service.results, web.request.results, excuse me. So now we have our actual total amount of total values that are coming in. And again, immediately we can go ahead and turn on our real-time visualization engine. Let's set our refresh for 5 seconds. Let's narrow our time scope down to 15 minutes. And now we can get our resolutions at the 10-second mark. Right? And this, again, is going to just give us the total values that are being reported to Statful from both endpoints. If we want to see the discernible difference, we can, let's just jump right on in here. And again, let's add our grouping. So I'm going to save this. Well, let me give it a name first. I'm going to save it to our total values dashboard. Save. And now let's get back up again. Let's get back over to our dashboards. And here we are. And I'm going to keep this at 1 hour, and I'll keep the request. No, I don't want to make any changes. And I'll keep the request at a 15-minute mark, because requests are, we really want to be close to the metal here to understand, see these requests as they're coming in a 15-minute window will really help us discern, any immediate spikes or spikes that we may have missed. Okay, so now we have our total values dashboard set up. Our enterprise is aware now of the results being generated in this service. And this is important because, again, Statful being as flexible of a tool as it is, it's not limited to monitoring web services, right? It's send me a value, I will plot it on the graph for you, and I will allow you to create dashboards that can be displayed across your enterprise. So if this were a shopping cart service, or let's say a wallet service, or any one of those enterprise services that you associate with conversions, ROI, you'd want to know this information in real time. So Statful gives you that opportunity to get that peek into your business in real time during a given customer day. Now, these dashboards are great that I've set them up because I can visualize them, but let's talk about how do we share this now. So here I have an individual widget. And if I want to share this widget with, let's say, I just want to show my manager, like, hey, look at what's taking place today. It's a great day. I can simply take a screenshot and send it via email. It's that easy. Now, if I want to share this dashboard with someone, I can share the entire dashboard that I've created here with another team or the entire organization. And if I wanted to get into sharing the individual widget, let's see, I can share this widget with an individual user. So widgets are great individual pieces that can be utilized and can be created by anyone in your enterprise. And so you can have 5 widgets created by 5 completely different users about information that they care about. You have them because they were shared with you, and you can create your own dashboard of these different data points across your enterprise about information that's pertinent to you. And with that, I'd like to close. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the example that's going, and I'm going to jump back over into our UIs to look for any questions and answers. Well, it appears that we don't have any questions. And either I was that clear or you would prefer to ask the question offline. So if you do have a question that you'd like to ask offline, please feel free to email us at webinar@statful.com. Again, that's webinar@statful.com. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Again, this is our weekly webinar series, so you are welcome to join us again next week, where we'll be discussing how to set up guidelines for targets, baselines, and alerts.